G'day everybody, welcome back to the podcast for another week. My name is Matt Walsh. Jake Michaels is here, as is Champion Data's Christian Joly, here to talk all things footy for another week. We're going to look at the Lions and if they're perfectly placed to make another run. Plus, the Suns eclipse the Bombers. We'll talk about that as well. Nick Daicos is standing in the game. The best pick six players in the AFL, not the NFL. And a whole lot more. But first, Christian, I'm going to throw to you for this one first if I can. Something you noticed, please, from round 16.
Yeah, so North winning 3 consecutive games, so won their last 3.
Bit of a rarity.
Back to back to back. Rarity. So first time since 2020 that they've actually been able to string 3 games together, which gives them sort of a 143 game streak of not winning 3 games in a row. That's their equal longest streak of the club's history, and it matches their first 143 games of the club's history from 1925 to 1932. They didn't win 3 in a row until their 144th game onwards. So,
bit of symmetry there.
So
that's
kind of weird.
Yeah, so equal longest, and it's the equal 5th longest by any team to sort of have a drought of winning 3 in a row. So, yeah, positive signs for North Melbourne.
I mean, it helps when you play the 3 worst sides in the league 3 consecutive weeks.
But years ago, they would have been one of the 3 worst sides in the league. So I guess they're kind of moving up in the world. I mean, do you think now that, they're potentially a wild card in the making there for North? I mean, that would be the aim, I'm sure, but they've got a tough run home.
Yeah, I think we kind of said this at the start of the year when we were doing our season predictions and looking at the season as a whole and the fixture of who they were playing at throughout. The double-up games, etc. I think we sort of felt like with the extra 2 final spots, they should be around that mark. A couple of weeks ago before this 3-game win streak, we sort of said like they weren't really going that well. They were a Cam Zerha after the siren miss away from losing 5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, look, 3 wins. They obviously had that horror loss to Freo over there. So, look, I would like to think that, yes, they can be in contention for one of those 9th, 10th spots at the very least.
So they're 8 and 7 now. They are in 9th spot. Below them is Collingwood, Gold Coast, Carlton, St Kilda, GWS and Port Adelaide, who we'll talk about a little bit later. They're currently 15th, so in the bottom 4. So there's a few of those teams around them, and they play a few of these teams as well. So they got Port Adelaide this week, Adelaide Oval, Collingwood at Marvel, which is one of Collingwood's rare Marvel home games. Then they've got the Demons at Marvel, St Kilda obviously at Marvel. Then it gets a little bit harder. Hawthorn, the Dogs, Geelong and Sydney to finish. So you think that last month's going to be pretty tough?
It's tough. It is. So they had to win these 3 games now. They've done that. And you figure you're probably going to have to...
win a few more in a row.
Well, you're definitely going to have to win a few more, but you're probably going to have to pinch... They're the games, right? When you're playing the other teams in those 8 to 11 spots, they're the ones you just have to win.
Collingwood and St Kilda are the 2 circles for me on the North fixture. If they can get over those 2, they put themselves in a very, very good spot.
Well, you probably need maybe 11 games, I'd say.
I reckon it's probably going to be closer to 12.
So they'll need to win all 4. Port, Collingwood, D's, St Kilda.
Or pull off one of the upsets against one of the top sides.
Yeah. See how they go. I mean, look, they've put themselves in the position, which is what they have not been able to do in recent years. I mean, they'll get there, but we'll see what happens. Hey, something I noticed a similarity between our very own Christian Joly and Ken Hinkley watching the Showdown on Saturday nights. On the coverage on Fox Footy, Ken obviously recently departed from Port Adelaide, spent a lot of his time there as coach.
Recent? Is it that recent?
12 months ago or so, whenever it was, however long it was. It's still pretty recent. So recent that he keeps saying we when referring to Port Adelaide while he's in the commentary box.
Yeah.
Reminds me a little bit of Christian sometimes when he slips up when
I'm not the only wee dropper, am I?
Is he a wee? Do you mean he's a weer about Champion Data or weer as in Carlton?
Whereas Ken was a weer as in... Port Adelaide a few times during the Showdown. Caught the ire of a few people, especially Crows fans.
I was working on the game, so I didn't get to hear the commentary and heard people speak about it in the office this morning. But one person did say, I think he said at the start of the game, I am going to be one. I'm ready to start barracking for this game. So at least he was honest about it. I know it did caught the ire of Adelaide and sort of neutral supporters, but he didn't hide the fact that he was barracking for Port Adelaide that night.
Here's the thing, I don't hate that. I don't hate it when you've got, especially when you can balance it out with someone like Mark Prosciutto for the Crows. I mean, you can, Prosciutto, if he wanted to, he could pump him up a bit more, the Crows. I actually prefer it when you do have commentary teams that do have recently departed people who have a bit of insight, have a bit of knowledge about what happens within the 4 walls, talking about it. And if they're going to get a bit passionate about it, fine. I don't like it when you don't have it the other way or it's out of balance. I think you've got to be able to have that balance. So if Ken's doing a Port game, you've got to have whoever's playing Port, maybe someone that knows a bit more intimately the other team as well. So yeah, I mean, we is not ideal. That's probably something he needs to stamp out a little bit because it's not the most professional thing to be doing. But especially when you are on Fox Footy and talking to hundreds of thousands of people. But I don't hate the fact that he is on those Port Adelaide broadcasts, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
A little bit.
All right, I've got a couple more for you. Round 17 is going to be the only round this year, aside from opening round, doesn't count, don't want to hear about it.
Nine game round.
Well, not even that. 6 game rounds, other rounds, round 1 that had fewer. Round 17 is going to be the only round this year where every single game is played at a unique venue.
This is a good one. Did we count, was it 6 different states we're playing in?
Yeah, I think, and territories are also
States
included
and territories.
there.
And
So
I don't know was that one floated over to Christian to look back on?
I haven't had a look.
no, I mean, that was just me doing the...
Can't happen often, surely.
Can't happen. Well, it's the only time this year. So if we were to go through the actual fixture, if you look at it going Thursday night through Sunday, you've got Geelong and Brisbane at GMHBA, Sydney Western Bulldogs at the SCG, West Coast Adelaide at Optus Stadium, Hawthorn Melbourne at UTAS, and that's another discussion for another day, Giants Dockers at Canberra, Suns hosting Collingwood on the Gold Coast, Richmond hosting Carlton at the MCG, Essendon hosting St Kilda at Marvel Stadium, and then Port closing out the round at Adelaide Oval.
It's a national game.
Yeah, sure is.
The world game, something like
Finally, 9 games again in the round as well.
Yes,
which
that's
we've been
nice.
Crying out for. And then another one, for the last one, I promise this. Round 17 is also going to be a round in which the 2 shortest breaks between return games occur. So let me explain that a little bit. In round 10, Geelong and Brisbane played each other and Melbourne and Hawthorn played each other. They're also playing each other this week in round 17. So these 2 teams, we can round up a little bit, but Melbourne and Hawthorn played 48.9 days ago. And Geelong and Brisbane will have played 49 days prior.
I'll explain those numbers. So, yeah, Geelong, Brisbane, obviously 49 days exactly. So their start time is the exact same start time as it was in round 10.
Thursday night.
It's a good full day, sort of, to turn around for 49 days. Melbourne Hawthorn, as I said, also played round 10 and playing in round 17, but they're playing, I think, half an hour or an hour earlier than they did previously. So if you want to go by hours, the Melbourne Hawthorn is the fewest amount of hours between 2 opponents
and that's
meeting this year.
So that's the shortest, time between return games in 2026. A few other short ones. St Kilda, Sydney, they played round 13 not too long ago. They'll also play in round 21. The Hawks and the Dogs met twice within 8 weeks, so round 15 and round 5 and round 13. But then there's this other one that I've got up the back of my sleeve that our producer, Boxy, said to us. The Hawks don't play the Eagles until round 24 for the first time this year.
And then you missed the 5th one on the list was Hawthorn Gold Coast, also had a short turnaround round 7 and 15. So Melbourne Hawthorn, Hawthorn Bulldogs and Hawthorn Gold Coast have been 3 of the 5 shortest turnarounds. So why Hawthorn having to rush against all these opponents and playing West Coast?
And then they don't play West Coast till round 24.
It's a bit different this year, but Carlton Hawthorn was traditional. For about 5 or 6 year period, they didn't play until round 21 or so nearly every year. So, yeah.
In a year where we have questioned the fixture...
Questioned is almost too kind.
Almost weekly. You have to ask yourself why. And I don't know... Is there a reason that we're just overlooking that, that's why they do it? I can't imagine there is.
I suspect, without knowing too much, and maybe we can ask the AFL this, but I think it literally just means it is because there are too many marquee slots throughout the year where Team X is locked into this slot on this time. And the AFL wants to get big games, big Vic clubs playing each other early in the season when the weather's nice at the MCG, so they lock those in. They then have to lock in, Queensland public holidays, West Australia public holidays, making sure they're not going too early on Anzac Day.
Spokesperson right here.
This is what I suspect is happening. And it just sort of gets to a point where you're like, well, we can't fit this in until much later.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Still think you can do it better. Still think you can find a way for everyone to play each other, or at the very least, avoid these 6-7 week periods where you're playing a team twice.
Well, while we're on the subject, I guess, of the Hawks in these return games, another one I'd like to raise, and this is, I don't know if this is the broadcaster or the AFL, but I work a lot of Thursday nights as just on the desk doing bits and pieces, and I can tell you now, I've watched Hawthorn more than just about any other club this year. And I've sort of looked through the fixture as well. 7 of the last 8 games the Hawks have played have been either Thursday night or Friday night. Are we getting a bit of primetime fatigue on the Hawks? I mean,
maybe a little bit.
Are 7-year-old Hawthorn fans getting to go to the footy?
I feel like what happens is you get, to your point about the fixture, you get...
Things are locked in.
you play a Thursday night game and then you can't then be put onto the Sunday because it's like with day breaks and that sort of stuff. And I think you kind of get pigeonholed into just playing these Thursday, Friday. Plus, what was it, Hawthorn that rated? They were the number one rated team last year when they were on
TV.
On TV, I'm pretty sure. So I think the
broadcasters
must like having them on.
But is there a responsibility for the AFL or the broadcasters to maybe show, especially on free-to-air, you talk about anti-siphoning laws and making sure that more people watch the game and get into the game. If you've got, let's say, North Melbourne fans out there that want to watch their team on prime time, it just doesn't happen that often. So is there a responsibility for the broadcaster to say, great, we love having Hawthorn on Thursday and Fridays, but maybe we need to have other sides because, even on their Sunday 3:15 slot, the Ds are on at least 8 of those this year. They've had a lot in the front half and there's potential for 2 more because we haven't got the fixture for the last couple of weeks. So, I don't know, I was just sort of looking at the primetime fixturing and I'm just not sure what the...
fixturing has been garbage this year. We've said it numerous times, but it's been very poor. Anyway.
Something you noticed, please, from round 16.
Something I noticed a list on Thursday afternoon doing the rounds on social media, and it caught my eye, and I was very disappointed with this list. I don't know who made the list, but I'm going to read it to you.
Biggest Geelong haters in the media?
The top 10 most hated players in the AFL today. Current. Okay. So here are the 10 names starting at number 10.
Do you know who made this?
I don't know who made it, no. I wish I did because I'd given the shout out. Starting at number 10. 10, and see if you can sense a bit of a theme amongst some of these players. James Sicily, Braden Maynard, Bailey Smith, Dane Zorko, Zach Merritt. I think Zach Merritt's probably a little stiff, but probably the off-season sort of shunned.
Didn't endear himself to fans, yeah.
Jack Ginnivan at 5, Pat Voss at 4. Tom Papley, he's starting to get a similar theme of player. Toby Green at 2. And number 1, and this is where I just couldn't believe it, and I don't know if I feel like I'm living on a different planet sometimes. Number 1 was Nick Daicos. And I just don't know what this guy needs to do to be respected, liked, appreciated. How can he be? And I don't know who made this list. I'm not saying that this is the list that we must all go by, or this is the be or end.
But there are people out here who
believe this, yeah. And there are a lot of people that do. And I just do not understand why. I don't know what he has done throughout his 5 years so far in the system to give anyone anything to dislike him. He's come in. He's been a highly touted prospect. He's come in. He's playing for a big club, obviously. And within 30 games, he's probably put his hand up to say, is this guy the best player already? After 30 games? By now, I think he clearly is the best player now.
In the league?
In the league. Not that I don't think it's close, but I think it's undeniable that he's the best player with what he's doing, the consistency and his output week after week. But I just don't understand where this criticism comes from.
It's got to be classic tall poppy syndrome.
So,
but that's what I mean. To finish on top of that list,
it's
sort
with
of like
those
you can
names,
see some of the
like,
others with the tribunal records they've got, or the in-your-face style of some of them. Nick Daicos just plays football.
Yeah,
he plays it pretty well.
Out there and plays it pretty well. So
and I see the tall pop. I get the tall poppy that exists, in this country. But and someone else made the comment earlier today that it's probably because he plays for Collingwood. That combination. Well, Scott Pendlebury's a great player that played for Collingwood. You don't hear anyone criticising or having a go at Scott Pendlebury hating him. Quite the contrary. People love Scott Pendlebury.
Pendlebury and Sidebottom. I don't think you find many.
Darcy Moore as well. I mean, another very popular Collingwood player outside of what,
So I just don't know what it is about Nick that people don't like. And I feel like he's constantly fighting this battle of, not that he necessarily would care or needs to defend himself, but I just don't understand what he needs to do. I think he's done everything. You just give everything a check so far, what he's been able to do in his career.
So maybe it is people trying to chop him down for tall poppy because I think to your point, I can agree with you. I think he's the best player in the league. I mean, you look at his numbers on the weekend, 37-3 and 7 odd clearances or something. You kind of just go, oh yeah, that's a Nick Daicos. That's a pretty good Nick Daicos game. Taking the opposition out of it, of course, and all those sort of caveats. But he has these sorts of games more often than not.
He does. I think he is the best player in the game, and I think you look at what he does. You look at the 4 or 5 parts to his game. Ball winning. Well, he's averaging almost 36 disposals a game this year. That's number 1 in the league. He's the best ball winner in the comp. Ball use. I know we can look at some of the numbers that say, well, his ball use has come down a little bit this year. I think there are a couple of parts to that. One, there is some more contested stuff, but also his teammates give it to him a lot when he's under pressure, which makes him turn the ball over probably more when he shouldn't be getting the ball. We know that when he has time and space, he can carve teams up with his ball use, either by hand or by foot. He's an incredibly smart decision maker. Scoreboard impact, like he's up to 18 goals for the season so far. Elite numbers for a midfielder. He missed a game as well. Like he's probably going to finish 25, 26, 27 goals. Like that's an incredible return from a midfielder that does win so much of that ball. You go and look at the other names high up in the ball winning this year. No one's close to the amount of goals.
You talk about his ball use. So I know he's still leading the comp for kick clangers, and there is a few times where he's sort of I don't know. It's almost like through boredom or something where he just goes for the harder kick, and they're not horrible clangers. But the other thing I think that's underrated about his game, but you have to really, view him off the ball to see is the amount of instructions he's giving the teammates as well. He's always telling them where to put it, where to run, and at stoppages he's pointing it. There's a whole lot of times where a guy will take a mark, he'll run past, often calling for the handball. If he doesn't get the handball though, he'll point to the guy where the best option is and things like that as well. So he's doing all that sort of on-field general stuff as well. So one of the things we looked at is, you spoke about, the dynamic parts of his games and what he had on the weekend, but looking at guys that have had at least 30 disposals and 1 goal a game. So he's done it so many times across his career, but we've taken that as a percentage. So the percentage of games across his career that he's had at least 30 disposals and 1 goal. He's done it 30.3% of his games across his career.
1 in 3, almost.
Which is number one. The next 3 best players are all almost even. So Dane Swan across 258 career games did it 26% of the time. Gary Ablett across 357 games did it 26% of the time. And Dane Beams, 177 games, did it 26% of the time if you round up as well. So a lot of those guys had longer careers. So if you go to total numbers, they've done it more times. Yeah. But as you said, 1 in 3 games.
And you make the argument that he's not hit his peak.
Well, and that's the point. Like those 3 names that you mentioned, they all have played or got to play through their peak. We have not seen Nick Daicos at his peak yet. We haven't. And I know you are someone that always pushes back on me with this and says, well, why isn't this his peak? And the reason that we are not seeing his peak right now, because point me in the direction of another 23-year-old that has peaked at that age and never, and barring injury, which would be tragic and unforeseen, and let's just assume that there is no catastrophic injury and that he wants to keep playing. I don't see a reason to believe that at 23, this is the best we're ever going to get from him. It's going to be downhill or even maintain from here. This
is hard radio to understand. Those watching on YouTube might be able to see it better. I think you're kind of suggesting that his rise will continue to sort of shape up in this sort of parabola. Whereas I'm trying to say that I think he's rising so quickly that he might have reached the peak or will reach the peak sooner, and it will kind of plateau. I don't think you can end up averaging 44 and kicking 3 in a season because there's just not enough time, not enough space. There's too many players on the ground. There's too much ball in the opposition's hands that it's just not going to happen to that extent. I think you can argue for sure there'll be incremental increases where he might average 33 instead of 32 or 34 instead of 32 and maybe 1.6, 1.7 games.
Why is he the exception compared to everybody else? Everyone else, go and look at Marcus Bontempelli, go and look at Lachie Neale, go and look at Gary Ablett, Patrick, every player that you want to look at 23 versus 28. And it's not a 2% rise. It's like a 20 to 25% jump from 23 to 28, 29 when you're 28, 29 is like, that's when you're in your prime.
I'm not denigrating Nick Daicos. So I'm not saying that he's not going to get better. I just think that it's his parabola or his acceleration to his peak has happened quicker than other players.
Well, maybe it's happened quicker, but why can't it keep going?
For these reasons. I think the game, it's not getting longer, the game. There are other players.
Never got longer.
Possession is split, whatever. So you're limiting yourself with the amount of ball you can actually win because of the amount of time that your team's in possession.
But the games have always gone the same amount. Like, that's not changed.
He's not going to get 40% fitter and run 40% faster to get 40% more possessions. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a little bit with Matt on this one in terms of, and it's because we've never seen someone take so much responsibility from day one. He is getting the ball as often as possible already, so it's hard to see him getting it more.
Like, incrementally, sure.
Not so much.
As I said, number 1 for kick clangers this year. If that drops down to 50th in the comp and he's still getting the same amount of ball, then there's your improvement.
That's what I mean.
It might not be in the improvement in the raw numbers. It's going to be in the impact and things he has. But yeah, I'm a little bit with Matt in terms of we've never seen, even Dangerfield, Bontempelli, all these guys that sort of do have comparable numbers to when they were 23, they weren't given this much responsibility in terms of just getting it and being given it to 30 times a game. So yeah, I'm the same. It's not all of a sudden like there's bits of his game where you watch now and go, geez, if he could just nut out those, extra 15 minutes so his numbers go up. He's playing full 4 quarters.
I see what you mean. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying what is he this year? He's 36 disposals and 1.3, 1.4 goals a game. I'm not saying that in 3 years is going to be 40 and 2.
Yeah. I think it'll be like 30 and 2.5, and that will be better. Less ball, but more.
But I think with shutting your eyes and not looking at what the raw numbers are, I would be stunned, and we all would be stunned, if we didn't look at Nick Daicos as a 28-year-old player and say he's better today than what he was 5 years ago. Yep. I think it's almost impossible that he wouldn't be better. And it's not just, he gets more kicks now than he did when he was... It's not just the numbers, it's the whole package. And I think there's no world that exists, barring a catastrophic injury, where he is not better at 28 like every other player versus at 23. And he's not... So to that point, he's not close to his prime yet.
Okay.
And I think... So looking at forget what he will be, what has he done? To this point of his career, to 23 years of age, through 4.5 seasons, no one's been better. No one has had a better start to their football career. The modern era, right? Like what we know of football, no one's had a better start to their career. No one has put themselves on this kind of trajectory through 100 games and change this early. And if you said to me, you can take Nick Daicos for the rest of his career, he's 23 now, you can take him for the rest of his career, another 10, 11, 12 years, whatever, or you can have Dustin Martin at 23, wind him back to 23, knowing the player he will be for the next 10, I'm still taking Nick. You can do the same thing with Nat Fyfe, you can do the same thing with Chris Judd, you can do the same thing with Patrick Cripps, you can do the same thing with Lachie Neale, you can do the same thing with any of these guys.
Gary Ablett?
Gary Ablett's the only one. Gary Ablett's the only one I'm hesitant to say, because that's a real argument. Gary Ablett's the benchmark player of the modern era. Some say he's the greatest player of all time. He is the gold standard when it comes to modern day midfielder. And I think Nick he's the closest comp to him in so many ways. A player who can win ball, who is a great user, who can kick goals, who hit the scoreboard, great work rate, great decision maker, intelligent, son of an all-time great. They're so similar in so many ways. And I say I wouldn't take Nick over Gary, but maybe that'll be wrong. Maybe that'll be the wrong decision in 10 years' time. But I would certainly take Nick at 23 over any other midfielder that I've ever seen, knowing what they do for the rest of their career. I think you just have to extrapolate it out with him. And I know there's a bit of guesswork involved because we don't know. But I'm happy to take that risk. I think from what we've seen so far, the player he is, and the part that gets sort of forgotten about in all of this, everyone focused on the numbers and all that stuff. The maturity of the guy, he's going to captain that side or whether he goes somewhere. His leadership qualities, and not just not the Patrick Cripps type, put your team on the back. I mean, he can do that too. But your point, the instructional stuff, and not just this year, he's been doing this since he's 20, 21. There's a reason that they wanted to get the ball in his hands. He just was the guy that knew what he was doing more than anybody else. And I think that in itself is such an underrated part of his whole package.
We should probably move on, otherwise we'll start getting messages saying all we do is talk about Collingwood.
Now, Josh Daicos.
Let us know what you think. At Footy Tips on Twitter, you can agree with Jake, you can disagree with Jake. He will happily engage with you on Twitter.
I will.
Yeah.
Well, not happily, but I'll...
He will begrudgingly engage with you on Twitter on the Nick Daicos debates. But he makes some good points. On Thursday night, Brisbane had a strong win over the second-placed Swans. So they're now 9-6, fifth on the ladder. They just look like, and it's a bit of deja vu, they just look like they're ready to assault this last sort of third of the season. After a so-so start of the season that they've had before in previous years, they've come good, and it's starting to look like that again. They have done this before, Christian. You just have to sort of look at their premiership years and where they came from, which was not incredibly strong positions. They were in strong positions, but not incredibly strong positions. Can you maybe refresh our minds and memories about where the Lions have been over the last couple of years?
Yep, so coming into round 17, like we are this week, so in 2024, they were 8 wins, 6 losses and a draw, sitting 8th on the ladder with a percentage of 121%. So a pretty good percentage for sitting 8th on the ladder. Last year, they were 10 wins, 1 draw and 4 losses, sitting 3rd on the ladder with a percentage of 113.45. So we look at them this year, 9 wins, 6 losses. So, as I said, 8 wins in 2024 at this stage, 10 wins last year, sitting right in the middle with 9 wins. Sitting 5th on the ladder, which, they were 3rd last year, 8th the year before, so 5th is almost right in the middle of it, with a percentage of 111%, so it's the lowest percentage they've had in that time, but still well over 100%, so still well over in the positive for the season. So, yeah, eerily similar to where they've been, as you said, at this stage of the year, the last 2 when they've come back and won it all.
And still with some players to come back.
Oh, yeah, we've kind of not forgotten about them, but there have been other sort of stories and a few of the teams that we will talk about later in this podcast that have sort of taken the attention away from the Lions. But we were talking to one of the Lions supporters in the office who just thinks that Eric Hipwood, well, he's not a world beater. He's important for the structure. What are you smiling at? Ryan Lester, really important member of that sort of defensive core, and getting guys back that have impact, rising tide lifts all boats, has them in a good position. But what they did to Sydney was scary. I mean, Sydney's been one of the better offensive and explosive teams this year, using handball, metres gained, and moving the ball quickly forward. And the Lions were just able to get the better of them. So maybe could you explain how they did that?
Yep. So, and it's a little bit leading into. And it's yet to be seen. Speed of ball movement's sort of gone up this year. Handball meters have gone up, but finals footy versus home and away footy.
Yeah.
Finals footy doesn't usually get brought into this 700, 800 metres gain of handballs, which we've seen Collingwood do in previous years. We're seeing Sydney do this year. Once it comes to finals, it's a bit more tighter stoppages. There's not enough space to sort of run that way. So even watching these two on the weekend, it was almost like 2 clearly different styles, and it's almost like, well, will one stand up better in finals than the other? Yet to be seen. But Sydney had 752 more handball metres gained than the Lions did. So Sydney gained 719 metres from their handballs, and Brisbane were negative 33. So Brisbane were working their handball back. So it's the 10th biggest differential ever in a game, 2nd biggest for the Swans, and 2nd biggest for the Lions. So
second lowest for the Lions.
Yeah. So either way, so the biggest margin between them.
Yep.
And then, Brisbane's kick to handball ratio in that game was 2.5 kicks for every handball, so 7th biggest for them on record. So,
which has kind of been their MO over the last few years.
But they both took it to sort of to the extreme. So Sydney we've seen them gain more than 700 metres gained by handball before, but not so much differential compared to what their opposition's doing in that same game. And with Brisbane, the same sort of thing. We know they love to kick the ball a little bit more, so they're usually about 1.98 kicks for every handball. They were at 2.5 kicks, so they just, kept sort of trying to pierce it through and playing their style. So that really stood out to me in terms of those two differing game styles, and watching the game and seeing the result. Brisbane's game style probably stood up better than the Lions, and a lot of that to do was the Swans scored 20 points from their back half, which was their fewest in any game this year. 14% of D50 chains went to inside 50, so that's their lowest this year. Points from D50 were 31 points for Brisbane, 6 to Sydney. So you can see that whole... Just trying to compare the ball movement, that helter-skelter handball game didn't hold up for Sydney in the game, and it sort of let them
still
down on the
gained metres,
scoreboard.
but it just didn't eventuate in scores.
It just didn't sort of have that connection to that final piece of the forward 50, whereas Brisbane were able to control the ball better, were able to score from back 50 and play their style. So in saying that, the kick mark handball game doesn't necessarily mean they were going slow. They still have it at a speed rating of 120.7. So we know 100 as a speed rating means you're moving the ball as expected from each of your possessions. 120.7 means from the way you're winning the ball, you're actually moving it quicker than the rest of the competition usually does. So that is the fastest of any side against the Swans this year. So going fast against Sydney, but not getting sucked into that handball meters again, trying to take them on at their own game and probably,
So taking them out, looking quickly, making a decision, hitting the next target, and then moving on.
Yeah, and sort of taking that the space that's given as quickly as possible. So, that were the two things that stood out to me. I mean, talk about sort of moving the ball from one end to the other and not being able to score. Brisbane were plus 18 contested possessions in their D50, which their 8th best game ever. Swans, as a forward line, their 5th worst differential either. So, same as when it got into the forward 50, we spoke about, Brisbane's team defence was able to be there and sort of tidy up that ball and not let Sydney, who have got... Curno's actually, one of the best forward 50 contested possession players. He just wasn't able to get the ball once it hit the ground. They didn't have Papley playing and a few other outs. But a lot of it to me was looking at the two very, very differing game styles and saying, well, one so far has held up in footy, and that's the kick, has held up in finals. That's the kick mark style of of Brisbane. And one probably hasn't held up in finals, which is Sydney and previously Collingwood and some of the other teams that have made it, like Giants, haven't been able to go all the way with that fast handball game. So just another sort of, just a watch on, what game style is going to hold up.
Well, if you had to, not guess, but if you had to sort of think about how that Swans game style would hold up over, let's say, 3 finals, will it?
Exactly. Well, we always speak about this, of you can't predict the future. All you can do is look at look at history, and history says that, handball meters go right down.
So it would have to buck a trend.
It comes right down in finals. But then it's also, you go the other way. So they've had their bye. Do they sit there at their bye and go, geez, this doesn't hold up in finals, so we need to find a way? Or does it just, let's back ourselves? No one's actually been as good as this and doing what we did.
So we don't have the data point to say that it can't work.
We might be able to be the first because we're going to back our style in. So coaches are obviously always wrestling with that all the time of, this is what's happened in the past, but this is what we're good at now. Do we stick with it, or do we sort of, do we chase our own tail?
I think the Lions are fascinating in so many ways, but no one's really spoken about them much this year. There's been a lot of talk about Freo and the year they've had, and rightly so. Sydney as well, Hawthorn. Like, there's so many other teams been spoken about. Brisbane had a lean patch, but they haven't been poor enough that we've focused on them. They've just kind of been hanging around, and now they've climbed back up to 5th. They're 12 weeks away from cementing themselves, and a huge if, but 12 weeks away, we could sit here in 12 weeks and say this is one of the greatest teams of all time.
Yep.
Like, they are, I don't think they look at the top two, who are head and shoulders clear in terms of ladder position at the moment, and are fearful of playing them away. I know Sydney at the Gabba versus SCG is a little bit different. As you said, a couple of players to come back. But same with the Lions as well. So I don't think they're worried about playing the Swans there. And Freo as well. As great as Freo has been, and they deserve to be premiership favourites right now, they haven't had the experience of playing finals at home and winning them. Exactly. So they played one last year and lost it by a point to Gold Coast, a side we continually say, we'll touch on them later, but can't win games on the road. So there are huge question marks on Freo as well. And then you look at the other teams sort of in that range with them. It's teams that they have either beaten in big finals or feel that they will be confident in being able to be. And I think they're well positioned, Brisbane. I said it in tiers a month ago. I'm doing my AFL tiers column for July, which comes out Wednesday. But for the June edition, I said, I think I had them in a tier of hanging on by reputation. But within that, I wrote, just be very careful writing them off, because we've seen proof of concept with this team, not being able to win the flag, but being able to win it from compromised positions.
Yep.
And I think it won't give them so much the confidence, well, we can do it. I think anyone they come up against will be crapping their dacks, thinking this team just wins finals.
Fair enough. One of those teams that you were speaking about is Fremantle, and we will touch on them again. They have now won 14 straight, completely blanketed the Suns on Sunday evening. 3 goals they allowed. And their premiership favouritism now, I think, can't be denied. No. Well, we spoke about the Lions and the Swans and all that, but I think that their premiership favouritism can't be denied. So they're 14-1. They're 2 games and percentage clear of second, and 4 wins clear of third. And Hawthorn has a draw in there as well, but they have to win 4 to leapfrog them. It's an enviable position, and one which history tells us, Christian, should result in them making the grand final.
Well, yes. So this is another one where I'll talk about history versus, we can only take you where you're at the moment. So 2 ways to look at it. So they're 2 games clear at round 16. So going back and looked at the last 15 years and just looked at, doesn't matter of your record, just are you 2 games clear of the rest of the competition at this time of the year at round 15 or 16, because they were 2 games ahead previously as well. None of them have won the premiership. So this is going back the last 15 years. Geelong...
I was just trying to pump them up.
There's 2. So there's 2 ways to look at it. This is one where you sort of say, and we've spoken about it before, there's, it's just a thrown out theory of, can you be too good too early and show your cards? So almost like the opposite of what Chris Scott was saying, and Geelong was sort of saying they played Fremantle and they sort of had a few out. So they didn't sort of try everything they could possibly do, and they think they could have a few things up their sleeve for finals. Freo sort of going that way in terms of they're so far ahead that now clubs are just spending their next 8 weeks dissecting their game and breaking it down. So the other teams that have been at least 2 games ahead at this start of the year, at this stage of the year, Collingwood last year, at round 16, 2 games ahead.
Forget about that, don't you?
And really dropped off. Sydney in 2024. So at round 16,
it's happened 3 years in a row.
2 games ahead, and then Freo this year. The one before that was Geelong in 2019. At round 15, they were 2 games ahead as well. So none of those teams have actually made a grand final, let alone won one.
Oh.
But then you look at teams that have just got a 14-1 record. So, or 14-0 or 14-1. So at any stage of the year, obviously, but it's usually going to be after 15 or 14 or 16 rounds, depending on the buys. But Essendon 2000 were 14-0, finished premiers. West Coast in 2005 were 14-1, finished runner-up. Geelong 14-1 in 2008, runner-up. St Kilda 14-0 in 2009, runner-up. Collingwood 14-1 in 2011, runner-up.
So there's a bit of history there.
Fremantle 14-1, 2026.
And I know
question mark.
And well, you say question mark.
That's the start I wanted him to lead with.
But I noticed on your notes you've got runner-up next to them too. Have you seen the script, or was that just a typo?
That was just some copy and pasting going a little bit too long. But yeah, it's one of those ones where you look at it and go, geez, has any club been in this position before that Freo? I mean, well, yes, they have been in this position before, and they haven't always led to instant success.
Yeah, it is interesting, but I do think it has led to some degree of success because I think we've said it numerous times. Like, you've said before, every club at the start of the year, the goal or the tick is like prelim is like no matter what happens, you can be pretty happy with your year. Take it a step further and say grand final. I think Freo would be pretty happy with that. Even if that, obviously you don't want to lose a grand final, but I think if that happens, it's a pretty good season. But I think that's the pass mark now. I don't want to be shifting the goalposts every week, but I think when you look at, they're going to finish top. At worst, they finish second, which means that they shouldn't have to leave Perth for the entire final series. You get to the grand final, anything can happen. You can win it by 10 goals, you can lose it by 10 goals, who knows? But I think, and I think you almost say what happens on grand final day happens. But I think getting to grand final day and playing in the grand final again feels like that's the minimum now. That's the pass mark.
Only pass mark.
So these Freo nuffs that are on the Facebook groups and on Twitter and trying to organise flights that are costing you $1,300, you would say just bite the bullet?
Well, yeah, I think they should be there. I mean, it's not to say they will be there. I'm not going to refund you $1,300 if they're not there, but...
T's and C's apply. Gamble responsibly.
If I was a Freo fan and I was sitting over at my house in Fremantle... And
you have to reach for that one.
Yeah, and I thought, gee, grand final on? Yeah, I reckon I'd be...
Fully refundable?
I'd be going like the semi-refundable. I'm pretty confident. But yes, like I said, they're going to be, no matter what, it's almost impossible for them to not finish top two and then have those two. And the thing is, all it can take is you lose that first week and that changes everything.
Yeah, a couple of injuries. I mean, we talked about them being blessed with injuries.
It can, but as things stand right this moment, yeah, I think it's more likely than not they're playing on grand final.
I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that they're so fit that their Peel Thunder, they had to play guys in the Waffle reserves because there's a limit of how many senior listed players you can play in these state league comps. So they're
Sam Sturt on the
They're almost they're too healthy, sort of.
He might even be off now.
Is he off now?
Well, I think he wasn't he a test last week, so I don't know how he pulled up, but he might be. They might have just no one on the injury list.
You got to take advantage when you get it.
You do.
You have to. In that game, so sort of the other team involved in that Sunday night game, it's been a mighty turnaround from the Suns. So the highs early in the season when they were premiership favourites, Jake. They were premiership favourites after a month. So now having lost 5 straight after their Darwin wins. It's a dire situation. They're now outside the 10. They took just 4 marks inside 50 against the Dockers. They were allowed to have the clearances, but Freo just controlled the open play and made them look second rate. It's been a really, really disappointing 5 weeks under Damien Hardwick and the Suns.
Yeah, they have now overtaken Essendon as the most disappointing team of the year, I think.
Damn.
Particularly when you look at all of the off-season acquisitions, the trajectory that we thought they were on under Damien Hardwick, the way in which they started the year with three consecutive 10-goal wins.
Yeah.
Against Geelong was one of them as well. You think, gee, this team's... They're actually going to make good on the whole hype of them finally being a premiership contender. Since then, it's been very ordinary.
Oh, the numbers some of the numbers are dismal.
You talk about just rounds 11 to 16. They are 18th on the AFL form ladder. So them and Essendon are the only 2 teams that have gone 0 and 5. But yeah, Gold Coast percentage of 71% has them sitting stone last in that sort of 6-week or 5-6 week period.
Yeah, and some tough games. Like it's not an easy stretch. Like you play 4 games against Brisbane, Geelong, Hawthorn, and
of course
Freo. But if you're a premiership contender, you can't be going 0-4 in that stretch. They still have trouble winning games on the road.
Yep.
I think we may have spoken about this a week or two ago, the attitude among the players, where I think people are starting to question.
Yeah, a bit of mirroring the coach when the coach brings up things like umpiring, which is a bit interesting.
Complaining and
it's a bit panicky from Hardwick, and it seemed to have filtered down. I mean, I'm not saying it happened on the weekend, but even just getting enough out of players that have had really good games this year and last year. I mean, Ben Long was one of the great stories of last year and had barely any footy against the Dockers. Bailey Humphries looked a shadow of himself. Tuke Miller, I know that midfield's really strong and bats really deep, but he's been like well below what we expect from him. Mac Andrew maybe hasn't quite made the leap that we expected him to do as well. Made a couple of really poor mistakes.
Yeah, I think defensively, you may have numbers defensively, but they've been awful. Since those first 3 games, they've conceded 100 points, I think, in 8 of 12 games or 8 of 11 games. Like, it's just, they're leaking far too many points.
So one of the stats we use for that is defensive efficiency. So for every 50 minutes that the ball is in your opposition's forward half, how many points are they putting on the scoreboard? So Gold Coast are conceding 100.5 points per 50 minutes in time in their defensive half, if you like, which is the 3rd worst team from rounds 11 onwards. So they were the 8th best team from round 0 to 10. Dropped to the 3rd worst team. But one of the numbers that sort of sticks out to me as a starting point, and it's a very simple stat in the game, is disposal differential. Have you or your opposition got the ball? So round 0 to 10, they were averaging 8.2 more disposals per game than their opposition, 8th. Since round 11, they're averaging 8.6 more disposals per game than their opposition, 8th. So 0.4 differential, actually, like slightly more in the differential. But everything else drops away. So they're still getting the ball. The contested possession differential has also stayed the same, if not improved slightly. But it's everything that's happening behind it. So forward half disposals, I mean, you start with that. So 46% of the disposals were in the forward half from round 0 to 10, which was the 4th highest of anyone. It's dropped to 40%, so it's now 16. So getting same amount of ball, but just all of it in the back half. The ability to sort of lock the ball in the forward half intercepts, they're going from the best team, 28 per game in round 0 to 10, to second fewest per game since round 11 onwards at 17 per game. So just being able to sort of dump the ball forward and then lock it in there, that's all fallen away. So that's a lot to do with structure and defensive structure. Obviously, their points from the forward half intercepts have gone from 1st to 16th as well. Inside 50 differential, as I said, having same amount of the ball as they were from round 0 to 10, where they were averaging +8 inside 50s more per game than their opposition, 2nd best differential of any team, to -8 per game since, which is 18th. So you spoke about they have come up against good teams.
That's fair.
But to me, they've still had the ball in their hands, so it shows that their lack of the system's dropped away, the confidence maybe has dropped away. I mean, handball meters gained, they're averaging 200 fewer meters handball per game from rounds 11 to 16 than they were in the previous first 10 rounds. So it is, have they gone into their shell a little bit? Have they, they're sort of taken away that dynamic ball movement that they was probably sort of...
Can they get it
That says to me it's fixable.
But is it?
Well, these players just haven't gotten worse and won't recover.
But is it fixable
Once
against...
it drops off. Like, it's that whole... We had it going, it's dropped off. It's not just flick a switch and turn it back on. Again, it's like, oh my gosh. And as I said, like with the Freo one, have the opposition tweaked. Now the opposition know exactly what they're trying to do, how they've been able to stop it. When it gets... And to your point, with Gold Coast, if it happens for 3 or 4 weeks where we're getting enough of the ball, but we just can't do what we want to do, maybe they do drop their heads and it gets worse from here. So I don't think it's a given of, that's good that it happened at the first 10 rounds, therefore it would come back.
They need a circuit breaker. It's kind of, I mean, not to talk about Carlton, but when you get rid of the coach and someone fresh comes in,
sacking Hardwick.
I'm not sacking Hardwick.
Maybe just for half a year and bring him back next year.
You just need a moment or a game or something to just sort of change where it just flicks and you stop thinking about what you can't do and you start remembering what you can do and what you are capable of, because the team has enough talent.
You're tipping them this week against Collingwood?
I'm
Gold
still
Coast?
tipping them at home, yeah.
Yeah, I probably am.
It's a real 50-50
This is their marquee game for the year as well, by the way. Always sold out, always during Vic school holidays. They want to win this because it's going to be a full house. So, gee, it's a must-win game because they're what, 10th and 11th on the ladder?
That's what we were talking about before. They're the games
These
you
are
need
the
to win.
games they need to win for wildcard. But this might be a little bit unfair to them, but I've spoken about it continuously on this podcast, which we've been doing for, 8-9 years now, and it's always the second half of the year for Gold Coast. There's been so many years where they've just been so good up until rounds, probably this year I've cut it at round 10, but probably get to round 12 or 13 in the top 8 of the ladder, or, probably not as high as they've been the last 2 years, but every other year Sort of been high on the ladder and dropped away. So I looked at it just since 2021 onwards. They've got it's about a 52% win rate from round 0 to 10, but that drops down to about 35 to 37% from round 11 onwards. And I'm sure if I went a little bit later, probably from round 13 or 14 onwards, there'd be a bigger variance. So I know it's different groups, it's different coaches,
coaching,
different players and all that stuff.
it?
But to me, my mind always goes back to this is Gold Coast from previous years. They've started seasons well. They've never ended a season as well as they've started a season.
It started back when Gary Ablett did his shoulder against whoever it was.
I think that was against Collingwood, yeah.
I think there's a bit of, and not to bring Carlton up again, but there is a bit of you need a season, and it was different for Carlton because it was just game by game. But once they have the season where they play it out, it almost, because you start getting in your own head.
Well, I don't know if it's, that's what I mean. I don't know if it's as obvious to them of whether some of the players have been there, they're longer gone. Geez, I remember a couple of years ago we struggled in the second half.
I think it has
hopefully the players have put that out of their mind. But when I look at them, I continually say, and it's, as I said, it might be unfair to keep continually label them with that tag, but when people keep asking where the Gold Coast is going to finish, it's like it's all to do with their second half of the year. Yeah. Every year, I can't call Gold Coast until at least round 2021.
So what do we think? Where do we think they sort of end up? I feel like they probably make it into the wild card.
But if they have to travel in the wild card, no way. Who's backing them?
Well, I guess they won a final last year away from home, but that felt like the natural stepping stone to what was going to be probably making the last 4 this year.
Yeah.
If they make the wild card and lose it, so that's an incredibly disappointing season from this group.
Yep, I think that would be a big fail. Big F. Chad Warner kicked one of the goals of the year against the Lions on Thursday. Don't know if you saw it, either of you, but intercepted the ball on the wing, just picked off a hand pass, took 3 bounces and slotted a goal from distance. Really classy. It was a ripper. Got me wondering, that's the footy equivalent of a pick six, not to get to ESPN, NFL. But in the NFL, if a defender grabs an interception and takes it back for a touchdown, it is called a pick six. So I wanted to ask Christian and be like, can you track this? Maybe put a couple of stats together that goes from sort of intercept to disposal to goal. And who might be the pick six king of the AFL?
Yeah, so it's easy to track. So we do every time a player gets an intercept possession, we will look at whether it scores or not, and that's from the complete chain. So we do have the ability to look at, okay, how many points has your team scored from your intercepts?
Yep.
But as you said, that could be 3 or 4 or 5 disposals
links,
later down the chain. So all we've done is just looked at that exact same number, but just ripped out all the ones that have actually exactly that, given it to another player. So these guys have actually just won the intercept possession and scored on the scoreboard straight
What can
away.
that include? That can include picking up a handball like Warner did?
So it has to be post-clearance. So you don't have intercept possessions before a clearance has happened. So all those times that you're at the stoppage and ball changes hands maybe 3 or 4 times, they're not turnovers yet. A clearance will happen, and that's when general play starts, and that's when the ball can start being turned over. So an intercept possession is basically you getting the first possession after the opposition's had the ball post-clearance. So most of them are, the Chad Warner intercept, he cuts off a handball mid-air. Yep. We've seen intercept marks is, you take a mark from the opposition kick. But intercept possessions can be as simple as a player is kicking out from fullback, kicks it out in the full, goes out in the full, and you take the kick. So that's probably the one where it's always like, oh, he's had 10 intercept possessions. Like, yeah, but 3 of those could have just been because he was the first player closest out in the full.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that when we talk about stats at Champion Data, we always start at the team level. So a team has to have an intercept possession there just to sort of start their chain. That possession will always get attached to a player. So there's that sort of smaller one where people look at it and go, how is that an intercept possession? Well, it's like, well, the word intercept isn't really needed in that one. It's just, did you have the first possession in that chain? But yeah, looking at these guys, they would be guys that are either got a loose ball get, or a ground ball get, a mark. Yes, this out in the full will count, but it's basically the opposition has had the ball, kicked it to you, or you've won it back and put it straight over their head. So pick six this year, it is fitting that Chad Warner was the one you noticed. That's the 5th time he's done it this year, and he's the number 1 player.
Wow,
so
good player.
5 pick sixes for him, 4 to Charlie Cameron, and 4 to Milan Murdoch for West Coast too. Yeah, he's been right up there for forward half intercepts and contested possession in the forward half and forward half pressure rack. So break down the forward half part of the game, and Milan Murdoch's sort of an elite player at the moment. I know he's only about 10 or so games into his career. But yeah, he always comes up for high in these. But I've also looked at, and you spoke about the NFL case, you can only score a touchdown. So you can only get there and score a touchdown. In AFL, we do know we've got 2 ways to score. Yes, the goal is the ultimate way, but you can also have what I've called a pick one.
Oh, come on.
Maybe you intercept the ball and get it to a behind. But again, not as exciting. So I think we've got 8 guys tied on 3 of those. So Phoenix Goddard, Sean Manor, Nick Daicos has done it 3 times, Horn Francis. But Chad Warner's in that group as well. So he's had 5 goals that he's kicked as, 5 pick sixes. Plus 3 picks won, so 8 times he's actually just intercepted the ball and put it straight back over the opposition's head. 2 more times than anyone else has done it this year.
He's not a surprising guy. The way he plays and the way he plays is very much a straight line.
So Jake Stringer's second. I think he's underrated for. I know it's. I'll still say it. I think he's underrated for the defensive work he's done this year. Stringer. He's been a pretty good pressure player this year. He's put some good tackles on in the forward line, and this sort of shows that he can actually win the ball back. Put over the head, and equal third is Nick Daicos and Sam Switkowski.
Just to clarify, this wouldn't count if it's holding the ball, you go back, take a free kick. It would count.
Yep, if you've won the ball back off the opposition. So that would be an intercept possession as well, because, the other team had it, turned it over, and then you're starting with it. So, so Isaiah Dudley's on here with 4 scores. I wouldn't be surprised if 3 or 4 of those are from holding the ball. So, just looked at best seasons ever, and I think we would have spoke about this in a similar way on the podcast. In 2023, I want to back myself, I think it was 2023 that it would have been something I noticed. Zach Bailey, and I remember saying he was about 270th for total intercept possessions, but he was second in the competition for points generated from his intercepts. So we're like, well, when he can win the ball back from Brisbane, it's just amazing. It's always going to lead to a score. Well, that year alone, he had 10 pick sixes, which is the most anyone's had in a season. So 10 of his goals.
With a goal.
Champion data history, so going back to 99?
Yeah. So and you can basically, simple way of saying that is he kicked 10 goals that year where the opposition gave him the ball. He didn't receive the ball from a teammate or anything. He did 10 times.
When
that's the most that's happened.
Discussing this in the office beforehand, he was one of the names that was brought up as we were kind of thinking who might top the list. And there's some other great names here, but a few of them are a little bit surprising. Yeah,
so Ash Sampy, second most. In 2003, he did that 9 times. Again, off the top of my head, a lot of those might have been, the run-down tackle, holding the ball type. Dan Butler, another one, 2023 at St Kilda, though. So Richmond, I was a really high forward-half pressure player, but his best year was at St Kilda. So, 10, 9 and 8 for the top 3.
Bunch of names on 7, but some surprising names.
Yeah, so, Jimmy Bartel, Jared Roughhead, Chad Wingard, Tom Papley, Mark Lacroix, Drew Petrie, Jeff Farmer,
2006,
Aidan Ballantyne and Jason Ackermanis, 2004. So only 2 of those have been in the last 10 years, though. So in terms of Zach Bailey and
Dan Butler.
And a lot of them were earlier on.
Very few key forwards as well. And I know it's probably something that you would think it's probably the more nimble pressure players, but at the same time you also think, well, key forwards, they generally kick in a lot more goals, so they probably would just win out.
Yep, so I've looked at the all-time, and this one is just all scores, so I haven't got the pick 6. I've looked at all what we call pick scores. Eddie Betts did it 75 times, so 75 of his 75 goals, career goals of his came.
Here's another name that
winning
came
the ball
up
back from the opposition. Second and third on the list are Lance Franklin and Jack Riewoldt. So they might not have appeared in there high for
but they just do it enough.
Season. But they still did it enough that, they're still the second and third most that we've seen.
So Eddie Betts, all-time leader, 75 pick scores going back to 99.
Yes.
Love that. Who's going to break that, I wonder?
Maybe Chad.
Yeah, Chad or Zach Bailey are the 2 on the watch list.
Is hype justified or is it hyperbole? Jake, Nick Watson is the first picked in the All-Australian team as it stands right now.
That's justified. I know I was raving about Nick Daicos earlier, and rightly so, but I think...
He's the best player in the comp. He's got to be there.
He is the best player in the comp, and he will be in it, obviously. But I think if you're looking at the gap between Daicos, if he's been the number 1 midfielder, and the number 2 midfielder, if it's Bont or Heaney or whoever you want to have there, again, probably not great for the pod, but it's a little gap.
If you're watching on YouTube.
But I think the gap from Nick Watson as the best general forward to the number 2, whoever that is, I don't even know if we have a clear-cut name that is number 2. I think the gap is significantly larger, and I don't think there's any other position that is as clear-cut. I think they're all debatable to some extent, even the ruck spot we sort of flip-flopped on. I think he's easily the number 1 player. He's second in the Coleman.
Yeah.
He's in his 3rd year general forward, sitting second in the Coleman.
He was on one leg on Friday and still kicking snags. And he sat out the second half.
He is an unbelievable player.
I love him.
He kicked goals every game, every round this year, and I think he's kicked multiple goals. He has kicked multiple goals in every game bar 2. So his goals in every game, multiple goals in every game bar 2. So,
his goal sense is possibly he'll be top 5 in the league, I reckon. Just where he knows where the sticks are when he comes out of traffic, when he gets out of the burst and steadies, he knows where they are.
He runs in the direction. He knows that, okay, I'm going to run this line because if I get the ball, I don't have to start arcing or anything. It's and exactly that. You might only get the ball once every 5 times, but that's all you need to do to.
Great turning circle, kicks well, knows where to be in the good spots.
Well, you say kicks well, but it's funny how the narrative sort of shifts very quickly because if you only have to rewind sort of.
His first 6 games, he couldn't hit the scoreboard.
It's not that people labelled him a bust, but people were sort of like, wizard, what's so special about this guy? And now you see it. What's he going to be for talking about players and peaks? Yeah. What's he going to be by the time he gets to sort of 27, 28, 29 years of age?
Yep.
One for you. The TV direction at footy games in 2026 is at an all-time low.
Oh, no, it's a hyperbole, but only because the 60s and 70s and 80s exist. But I am getting sick of watching TV camera angles from the ground level across the ground during open play where you cannot see what's happening. There was an egregious one on Friday night, same game. It was a passage of play that involved Will Day's ran too far goal. So the passage started with a kick.
Ran too far, shot a goal. Can't be a
goal.
Got
called back. Anyway, the play starts from an out of bounds or a lasso rule, and the camera angle stays the same for just about the entire passage of play. So the ball is kicked towards Will Day where he's not even in the screen. You can't see if anyone's closing on him. He then takes off. You can't see if anyone's going to chase him down or where the pressure is coming from the front half. He then goes to kick and fakes the kick, which is when he runs too far. But you don't know where the 50 is. And then the only time you get a sense that he's actually having a shot at goal is when it goes to the wide shot after the ball's halfway to the goals. I cannot understand why TV directors don't just stick with the wide shot and let the flowery stuff happen as you replay.
Cut to his face once the goal has been
I don't need the glamour shots of Will Day. I just want to watch the footy.
Like Will Day.
I just want to watch the footy, and I could not believe that was what happened. And it's not the only example.
No,
I mean, there are ground level shots all the time. I mean, we talked about in the office earlier the mark of the year that Jamie Elliott took on Anzac Day, where they stick with the wide shot until he's halfway through the mark, and then they go to this ground level shot, and you can't tell what's happened. It is honestly infuriating at times. Stick to the basics.
Quick sidebar on the running too fast stuff. Because we had one. What was the one we had the previous week? That was
St Kilda.
Max Hall.
Yeah.
That's right.
27 metres.
I knew there was another one, but I always laugh when the umpires whistle it and then they show the replay and the commentators count the steps, and it's like, well, once we've got to 15 steps, do people not realise that a player running at full tilt, Will Day running at full tilt, his steps are much greater than 1 metre?
Got nothing to do with steps.
Anyway, if you want to see the vision of it, you can find at Matt Walsh Media. I tweeted about it as well. Christian, Port gave us the blueprint on how to dismantle Adelaide's defence a week after we bloody talked them up on the podcast.
Well, just amazing on that. So we spoke about Adelaide and they were building their season back and it was all coming from defence. So, I mean, just comparing their last 2 games. So Port Adelaide was able to score from 62% of inside 50s against Adelaide on the night. That was after Melbourne was able to score from 29% the week before. And a lot of teams were around about the 38-39% mark going against Adelaide. So going from 29% one week up to 62%, that's
shell-shocked.
33% swing in terms of their ability to defend their defensive 50. It's their worst 2-game swing as a club since 2001. So I've never seen the defence sort of get broken apart so quickly, within 1 week of us. And as you said, it was 1 week of us sort of pumping him up and spending 10 minutes on the podcast talking about how good their defence was. But it was interesting, same with Brisbane, Sydney, when you look at the speed of ball movement, it was from a set position. We've looked at Adelaide last year, and when we sort of broke down them when they were finished on top of the ladder, I said, last year you needed to go hard and fast against Adelaide. The teams that did sort of show a bit more aggressive ball movement and the higher speed ball movement, you were putting the defence under pressure and giving them a chance to win. So even if you weren't beating Adelaide, you were getting to a closer margin if you kept that speed up. Port Adelaide sort of threw that out a window, so we can break the speed of ball movement down by all sorts of possessions and things like that. But just looking at from a set position, so when they had a set kick from a free kick or a mark, they were the slowest of any team. So that takes into account how long you're holding onto it, where you're moving the ball to. So that might have been a lot of sort of chips sideways, holding onto the ball a bit longer. That was the slowest any team that moved the ball against Adelaide this season. But from a general play possession, it was the 5th fastest anyone's gone against Adelaide. So it was like, be patient when we have to be and we can be. But once that ball hits the ground level and we're in a contest again, just let's
Two switches.
Just go, yeah. As soon as, because they'll be out of position as well. Let's hope just back our forwards to get it in there fast and quickly. So coming out of the centre as well was one I noticed. So that was the second fastest any teams moved the ball out of the centre against Adelaide, and Port Adelaide scored 4 goals, 2 across the night out of the centre. Took 17 marks inside 50 as well. So sort of kept that Adelaide defence sort of out of whack because of the speed they moved the ball. But it's sort of a little bit of a blueprint of, yeah, last year you wanted to go hard and fast against Adelaide, but maybe you're losing your way and you're playing a little bit of a 50-50 into their hands. If you can go control and things like that, but sort of from a general play, that's when you really got to put Adelaide. Like, that's when, once the ball hits the ground, that's when players are a bit more out of position because you don't know whether you're going to win, who's got the next possession of the ball, should I go here, should I go there? So I think that's where Port Adelaide were able to really sort of turn them apart and turn them inside out. But yeah, as I said, couldn't believe how badly the defence...
the swing is incredible.
How badly the defence performed after pumping.
And we should mention it, but the Zach Butters streak lives on.
Oh, definitely.
What's he, 1 away?
He should have been top 5 rated across the whole round. Yes, he'll be 1 away. So he'll
keep an eye on
go
that.
to equal Nick Natanui this week.
This week.
Who are they playing this week? I don't think it matters on the opposition anyway, but he's been doing it against anyone.
All right, final one before we wrap things up, Jake. Despite going 6-0 under Josh Fraser, the Blues are still more likely to miss finals than make it.
I think that's justified, as much as that pains me to say, which just highlights how poor the first half of the season was. Let's look at it though. So the Blues are 7-8 at the moment. We'll give Carlton this week. We'll give them the Richmond game. So 8-8 with 7 games to go. So if you look at the last 2 years, you needed to win 12 games to get to 10th. So you figure it's probably going to be 12 wins you need again. So from 8-8, well, you need 4 more. So what are the 4? Carlton plays Hawthorn, Fremantle and Brisbane in the last 7. Going to be outsiders in all 3 of them. Collingwood's a 50-50. I think the Saints are a 50-50 and the Bulldogs are a 50-50. And then there's Gold Coast at home.
Marble.
Don't know how we rate Gold Coast in that game. Probably another 50-50. So are they winning 4 of those games minimum? 3 probably won't be enough. And that's including the Richmond game. I mean, if they lose to Richmond, it's basically over.
Curtains, yep.
But assuming they do beat Richmond, they've still got to find 4 more wins. And I'm not sure. Is it going to be sort of Collingwood, Gold Coast, Bulldogs, St Kilda? Are they the 4? Do they get lucky and Freo rest a bunch of players in the last round? Do they upset the Hawks? I mean, they will have won 7 in a row, so it's not crazy to say that. I don't think it would be a total shock if they won a game against Hawthorn or Brisbane or something like that. But they're going to need to win one of those games.
They're in a similar position as Gold Coast in terms of they can control their own destiny a little because they're coming up against, as you said, Collingwood, Gold Coast, St Kilda, Bulldogs and Carlton almost
the
all
teams that they're battling
fighting
with
for those spots.
Yeah.
So it's going to see sort of.
The benefit will be they don't have to leave
Victoria,
which is a big tick.
It is. Would a team have gone on a 7-0 run in a season and missed finals before?
Last team to do it was Geelong 2002. So they won 7 in a row. I'm not sure what stage of the year it was, but didn't play finals. Before that, 1987 Bulldogs, and before that, 1982 Sydney. So
they've got to win this week first before we can start talking about that sort of stuff. Anyway,
they do. I'm not going to put the Moz on, but I do love the stat of no team in league history has ever lost 7 games in a row, and then immediately followed it with 7 wins in a row.
Well, Carlton have already claimed history. So no team's won 6 in a row after losing 7 in a row. So what happens this week against Richmond?
7-7 sounds better, but still, I like it.
7-6 has never been done.
Right,
so.
we've hit our Carlton quota for the week. Don't forget Red Time with JB and Coxie, YouTube and podcast every Wednesday usually.
Hey, was he right about the show? He maintains he was right about the showdown, saying that it wasn't close again.
Well,
but he seems to just
It wasn't close, but it was a shock result.
Yeah, I think that still means it was engrossing. It was still unexpected, entertaining.
And ESPN Footy Central on Disney Plus and YouTube every Wednesday as well. Plenty of footy to come. Jake's got his tiers out on the website, espn.com.au/AFL on Wednesday as well, so keep an eye out for that.
And let me know how much of an idiot I am for saying that Nick Daicos is a better player than
he will respond
Gary
on Twitter.
Ablett,
He's
Lee
trying to get
Matthews
better on
combined.
Twitter. He's trying to get better on Twitter, so he'll respond to you. Thank you very much to everyone at home. We'll speak to you in the next episode.